Good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Liverpool FC Journal. I'm MW James. This is Champions League match day, guys. We are live this afternoon, bringing you all the latest news and views ahead of the game against Qarabag tonight at Anfield, 8 o'clock kickoff. I've got my predicted team up there. You can see we'll talk about that as well on the video. We put out a video this morning. Obviously, please check it out. About that press conference yesterday, which absolutely blew my fucking mind. It really did. There was so much in that press conference where you literally could not believe some of the stuff that came out of that man's mouth. It was almost, I don't know, Maresca Amorim-esque in terms of, I don't know, just trying to get himself, I think he's trying to get himself sacked, but to me, he seemed to try to shift blame without actually specifically mentioning anybody and any name. He came out with comments that just did not make any sense. He genuinely, to me, was struggling to kind of justify what is going on at the club and justify how badly everything is going at this moment in time at Liverpool Football Club. I mean, genuinely, the situation is poor. At this present moment in time, we are struggling as a football club. I mean, 20 points, 20 points down on what we were last season. Football that is just poor, of genuinely low quality. Comments about that football that to me weren't accurate. But look, is this all on our slot? I think we do have to kind of talk about that to some degree. And you know, look, none of us truly know what's going on behind the scenes of Liverpool. You know, none of us truly know what Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards are saying to Arne Slot. You know, it could be a situation where Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards are genuinely saying to Arne Slot, "Look, mate, there is no more money. We're not going to spend any in January because there is none," which I do find exceptionally hard to believe, given the fact, as Arne himself pointed out, we brought in a lot of money. As well as obviously spending a lot of money, and this obviously comes on the back of the whole situation around the record turnover for Liverpool Football Club at this moment in time, and the fact that we're dwarfing that. There was obviously fascinating comments as well from Jamie Carragher as well during the week. So there's so much just swirling around out there in terms of, you know, where we are as a squad and as a team. I mean, like I said to you, you know, we may have spent 482 million euro, which is probably about 430 million pounds, but we also brought in 219.5, which just under around 200 million euro in money in through players leaving the club and transfer fees. So, you know, it wasn't all one way, was it? There were departures as well as arrivals, of course. You know, players that headed out of the door and brought in cash. Luis Diaz obviously brought in 70 million, Darwin Nunez 53, Jarrell Quansah 35, Ben Doak 23, Kameen Kelleher 14, Trent Alexander-Arnold 10 million, Tyler Morton 10 million, Nat Phillips 3.5 million. So there was a lot of money came into the club over that summer transfer window, as well as obviously went out of the club. So it isn't all one way. So I think, you know, these stories that Liverpool spent 400 million pounds and that's it, I think are slightly wide of the mark. Our net spend obviously is a whole lot less than that 400 million. I think our net spend is still less than Arsenal's. So I think there's a lot of disingenuous rubbish talked about Liverpool in terms of, you know, where we are as a club and where we are as a team in terms of what we spend. Do I think the squad is in a position to be strong enough at this point in time? You know, as I've said on previous videos, I don't think this squad is anywhere near strong enough to be challenging Manchester City, to be challenging Arsenal, you know, the top two teams in the Premier League at the moment. You know, you look at Arsenal's squad, and, you know, even given that defeat to Manchester United at the weekend, you know, the Arsenal squad is exceptionally strong. You know, you look at their bench that they had for that game on Sunday, and it's a bench that a lot of those players would get into other teams around Europe. You know, you look at obviously the bench on Sunday for them was obviously Ben White, ex-international, Eberake Eze, again, a guy who would walk into most teams. Victor Gyökeres, a £67 million striker. Nodi Madueke, England international. Mikel Merino would get into most teams. Christian Mosquera would, Gabriel Martinelli, whatever you think of him, would get into most teams. Kepa is a very good backup goalkeeper. Miles Lewis-Skelly is an England international. So, you've got a bench that is very, very strong there. I mean, I'd even say that Manchester United's bench on Sunday was stronger than our bench. I mean, they had Mazraoui, Cunha, Sesko, Mount, Yoro, Agate, and Heaven to bring on. And certainly stronger than our bench. So, I don't think the bench is strong enough. And yes, I know there are players out injured at the moment. Alexander Isak is out injured, obviously. Obviously, Conor Bradley is out injured at this present moment in time. So, there are players missing, but the squad for me is nowhere near strong enough. You look at like Giovanni Leone, obviously, as well. There's certain areas, obviously, that do need to be strengthened. And that is because, A, there is not enough depth there. Centre-back, I think, is at the moment an area we do need a centre-back bringing in. And now I see, obviously, we have 4 centre-backs. At the moment, we have only 1 centre-back, obviously, in Virgil van Dijk, with the situation where Konate, it's fine, fair enough what is happening in terms of him taking time out. But Joe Gomez is injured. Leone is injured. There are no other centre-backs. Left backs, there are 2 left backs at the club. The midfield area, I think is fairly strong in terms of we have Maka, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, we have Curtis Jones, Trainioni, who for whatever reason isn't trusted by the manager. I do think we are short of another 6 in that area. I do think there is a need for another 6 in that area. In terms of forwards, it's an interesting question with forwards. I think obviously with Isak being injured, you've got Cody Gakpo, who has been genuinely poor this year, genuinely awful this year. So he is a question, and there was a fascinating quote on him from Arne yesterday. He talked about the fact, and this is another kind of story that kind of made me kind of think, Arne, you really don't know what you're talking about. Arne mentioned on Saturday the negativity towards Cody Gakpo, the fact that he started Gakpo over Ekitike, which he explained by saying that Ekitike has obviously played a lot of minutes recently. He's just come back from injury. If the game had been 2 or 3 days later, he starts, but because it isn't, he doesn't start. So he said, if I'd started Alexander Isak, there wouldn't have been any questions, which to me kind of accentuates the delusion to some extent, because you're not comparing like with like. You're comparing Cody Gakpo to Alexander Isak. Well, Cody Gakpo is a one-trick pony winger, whereas Alexander Isak is theoretically a world-class centre-forward. So you're not kind of comparing like with like there, Arne. So that I kind of thought was a little bit delusional of Arne. In terms of the forwards, he said he was content with the 6 forwards. Unfortunately, we have only 4 of them he seems to have any confidence in. Ekitike, Isak when he's fit, Salah, and of course Cody Gakpo. Florian Wirtz obviously having to fill in on that left side at the moment due to those injuries and the lack of trust in Rio and Gamoa, and obviously the fitness and lack of trust in Federico Chiesa. I do think, I like Fede, I love Fede to bits, but I don't think he's a top-class talent. I think there is still a need for a wide forward to come in. I still think we are badly lacking in that area. I think we're lacking a 3rd centre-forward. Now, I'm not talking about a top-class, world-class centre-forward. I'm talking about a 3rd centre-forward to come in there that, that can help with injuries to Ekitike and Isak, or can help spell Ekitike and Isak. I mean, obviously, that's a role that Diogo Jota probably would have done, God rest his soul, but I think, you've got a situation there where there is a shortage in certain areas. Now, is that shortage in certain areas, the 6, the wide forward, the striker, the centre-back, is that down to Arne Slot and his views, or is that down to Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards? I think that is a question we need to look at. Now, Arne, the evidence that it's Arne is that basically, Arne has come out and said that he likes a small squad, that he likes to not have to disappoint, too many players. He likes to obviously have that smaller squad to work with, and he demonstrated that last year, and he was very fortunate last year that it came off, that we didn't have a lot of injuries. But the small squad argument kind of falls down if you look at other teams. Now, Arne yesterday gave a very mixed message on this. In terms of this small squad. Now, he kind of moaned a little bit about that small squad, talking about the fact that a lot of his same players have to play 90 minutes, that a lot of the same players have to consistently play week in, week out. And then he kind of sort of said, about there not being a bottomless pit of money, there not been the money there to sign players, which I don't believe for a minute. Now, is that coming from Richard Hughes? Is that coming from Michael Edwards? That's the question. There was also, the comment that he made yesterday, that the whole Paris Saint-Germain thing. I mean, the obsession that this man has with Paris Saint-Germain is actually quite frightening. He said, "This is not going to be a popular opinion that I tell you now. Maybe the reason we won the league last season was because we had to play PSG in the last 16. As you know, they beat us, and we had a week to prepare for a next game." Well, Arne, what you need to remember is once we were knocked out, we were knocked out of the Champions League. We had 10 games left. We took 7 points from a possible 30 points, Arne. So it was hardly a massive help now, was it, Arne, in terms of actually winning the league? So I think you're actually a little bit on shaky old ground there, Mr. Slot, with those comments. Now, the obsession with PSG is really frightening. Really frightening. He does seem to have this incredible obsession with Paris Saint-Germain. And look, I'm sure that Luis Enrique would have been watching at home and would have said, "Jesus Christ, I'm going to take out a restraining order against this man." I bet Luis Enrique has nightmares that he'll wake up in the middle of the night and find Arne Slot just over him like this, staring at him. His obsession with Luis Enrique really is quite frightening. But, the thing is, Arne, what you've got to remember is, as a football club, Liverpool Football Club are expected to compete for the league title. And yes, we don't win the league every season, but are expected to compete for the league title every season, to be top 2, top 3 every single season, and also to progress in the Champions League. So this expectation that, and he spoke again a little bit about this, didn't he, with that comment that he made in terms, let me see if I can quickly find that comment. Not that one, this one. He said, "The biggest struggle we have is that we play in both competitions. Too many times after a Champions League game, we have lost. There is a lot of away games in there." But as I said, the expectation is very much that you are expected as a Liverpool manager and as a football club to compete on those two fronts. This is a massive club. This is a huge worldwide club that is expected to compete for the Champions League, is expected to win the league, or at least compete for the league title. So to sit there and say, "Oh, it's too many games, this, that, and the other, it's good that we got knocked out of the Champions League," it kind of shows him to be a little bit out of touch on this situation. To be a little bit of kind of, I can't be bothered to compete for every competition. I don't want to win every competition. I just want to win one, and that'll be enough. And the expectancy, whatever. I mean, again, I think that's a little bit of trying to poke at the squad argument. But again, I refer you back to what he said earlier in the season, which was that he likes a small squad. He doesn't like working with a lot of players. He likes to not have to disappoint too many players. Something that he kind of backed up in the comments that he made yesterday when he said, "Oh, I had to disappoint 2 or 3 players," when he was talking about the team, the squad to play against Karabakh tonight. And he then goes on about not wanting to disappoint 15, 16 players if your squad's too big. But then he goes on about the squad not being big enough to compete in all competitions. To me, it's a very inconsistent message. It's a very much a mixed message that he's coming out with, and he really isn't helping himself with those comments. And fans are sitting there listening to these comments, and I read a lot of social media. I obviously watch a lot of content, and it seems there's a genuine and annoyed feeling amongst a lot of supporters at these comments that he is making. That there is a genuine, "Arne, shut up, man. Seriously, you don't know what you're talking about. You are causing more problems for yourself than you are actually helping yourself with these comments." It is a real worry, with what he's coming out with. Slot, I think, is struggling to get his head round what is expected. He's struggling to get his head round this season. It's just genuinely poor. This whole thing as well, we've won 5 games since September. We haven't won a game in 2026. I mean, how is that acceptable for Liverpool? How is that acceptable for this club going forward? I genuinely look at it and I genuinely think it's a massive concern. It's a big concern. And as I said, the comments that this man is coming out with are not helping at all. Really are not helping. I mean, let's take another comment that he made in this interview, in the presser that he gave yesterday. He said there's been a situation where a player was on the pitch and was involved in a goal at the end of the game, talking about the Bournemouth game, when really he should have been taken off. If people knew the struggles we were coping with, they'd be more understandable of the decisions we have to make. Well, what are these struggles, Arne? What are you talking about? Is this, again, a reference to the small squad? Is this... again, you want more players, but you're not going to get them. Is this you kind of trying to shift the blame onto Richard Hughes and onto Michael Edwards? Is that what you're trying to do? So you look at it from that aspect, and you kind of think, well, if that's the case, Arne, you're not being consistent in what you're saying, Arne, are you? You're kind of saying on one hand you like this small squad, but then on the other hand you're saying you want a bigger squad, you want more players, because that's what you're kind of hinting at in these comments without directly saying it. Now, he can't come out in a press conference and say, I want more players. We need to sign more players. We're not signing enough players. We should be signing players in this January transfer window. One, he never talks about transfers and he always bats that off anyway. But secondly, if he was to come out and to say that in a presser, he's going to basically sign his own death warrant. He's going to sign the fact that he is going to get sacked, because any manager that comes out and kind of that roundabout way criticises the club, criticises the sporting director, the recruitment strategy, is going to basically get sacked, because the Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes, John W. Henry are going to take that as Slot criticising them, criticising the club, and he's going to get the bullet. Now, he's not going to come out and do that, but he is going to, I think, he can kind of hint at and talk about the situation he finds himself in. So it's a really complicated, difficult situation for me. Now, on just looking at it on the face of it and trying to interpret it from what Slot's saying, from the way the club are behaving in this transfer window, from the way they behaved in the summer, you can kind of perhaps push some of the blame onto Richard Hughes, some of the blame onto Michael Edwards. You can kind of push some of that blame onto them and saying they're not recruiting enough. They're not bringing in players for me. And you can kind of say that, they're not bringing enough players to supplement this squad. And in January, we should have signed Semenyo and Gahey, or players like Semenyo and Gahey, to strengthen this squad. So you can kind of see that point of view, that there is perhaps some of that blame that does need to go on to Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards. However, I don't know, you don't know what the situation is. Is Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes actually saying to Arne Slot, we will buy Semenyo, we will buy Gahey, we'll buy this player? He's saying, man, I don't want them. I don't need them. I don't know, because I'm not privy to those discussions. None of us are. We can merely kind of discuss this as fans and kind of talk about this and say, possible. It could be possible. Stenner says, Stenner 2323, welcome Stenner. Good to see you. Says, I think Slot has a point when saying after PSG last season, as a team, we were dead on its feet. I mean, yeah, you've got a point there. I think, again, because of the small squad nature, again, because of the lack of players that we had last season, we did have a situation where we did have the benefit of being able to rest players, not playing twice a week. You have got a point there. But to put the league win solely down to that is wrong, in my opinion. The reason we won the league last season, for me, is twofold. One, it's Jurgen Klopp. The fact that Jurgen Klopp had put together that squad, that Jurgen Klopp had coached that squad. And I think that squad used a lot of the muscle memory and tactical memory from Slot to play in a way that worked last season to help to win us games. And the tiredness and fatigue, I think, came because of the fact that we had a squad still playing with a higher intensity, a Klopp-esque intensity still. So come February, March, they were starting to get tired. And that's where, when under Klopp previously, we'd had injuries, we'd had players burn out, and we'd obviously fallen off a little bit in the league challenges. So I do think that obviously the Klopp element has to come into it. Obviously as well, I think there was also a second element there, was Mo Salah. Salah, look, whatever you think of Mo Salah this season, and Mo has not been good at all this season. He has been very, very bad this season in terms of his performances. And look, I think that is sad. I think it's partly down to how he's been used, but I also think it's partly down to his age, and I think his legs have started to go. Another reason why we won the league last season was because of Mo Salah and his phenomenal form, his goals output, his assists output. the fact that he had a career year last season was a big part of why we won the league. So I think it's slightly disingenuous of Arne Slot to come out and say what he's saying. He's not he's partly correct, but certainly not 100% correct into why we won the league. And yeah, certainly, look, it's not rocket science. And thank you, Stenner. The more you play, the more games you play, the more injuries you're going to get if you're using the same 13, 14 players. The more 90 minutes you put into legs, I think you do risk that injury. You do risk injuries to players. Stennis says, I agree with Klopp's squad, etc. I think you have just hit the nail on the head with the word intensity. We have slowed our play down. I think, yeah, we have. I think we're seeing, and one thing that's annoyed me, Stennis, slightly, has been Slot has sat there this season and said, I've changed nothing in terms of the way we play. Well, yes, you have. It's right with what you're saying. We have slowed the game down a lot. We are playing a lot slower now than we were previously. We're not playing with the same intensity. We're not playing with the same aggression or dynamism or speed that we were playing under Klopp. We're playing a much more slow, deliberate build-up game, which I think a lot of it is designed to reduce the number of injuries, designed to reduce player burnout, designed to enable him to work with that small squad. One thing I noticed from the Bournemouth game at the weekend and the Barnsley game and the Leeds game as well, and if you guys have noticed this, there's a lot of walking goes on. There's a lot of walking football goes on. Liverpool players are walking a lot more than they used to. And I think you would never have got that under Jurgen Klopp. I mean, under no circumstances would Jurgen have tolerated players walking. So I think there is elements of that as well in it. You know, the fact that the walking side of it, the slowing down of the game, it has kind of been designed to, one, reduce player wear and tear, two, reduce burnout, but it's had a counter effect in that it's made us slow, it's made us boring, it's made us easy to play against, it's made us predictable, it's not enabled us to beat the low block. Now, Slot loves to talk about in the low block, and even though Steven Gerrard told him to shut up about it, he still talks about it. If you're going to overcome a low block, if you're going to beat a low block, there are two ways to beat a low block. One is to move the ball with speed, with aggression, and create overloads in certain position. If you slow down your attack, you enable your opposition to get back, to sit in and defend. If you hit them with speed on the counter, you don't enable them to do that. And Liverpool don't do that. The second thing is to use wide players, to use wingers. Liverpool don't have any out-and-out wingers at this moment in time. I wouldn't describe Salah as an out-and-out winger. I wouldn't describe Gakpo as an out-and-out winger. Rio and Gamoa is perhaps the only out-and-out winger that we have, but Arne doesn't trust him. So that's the other way to do that. Now, that is part of the reason that this slot ball, this way of playing, is not working in the Premier League and is perhaps working in Europe, because in the Premier League, you cannot play slow, boring, deliberate build-up football, because the teams that come to play us will sit in and defend. And Steven Gerrard was right. Low block is nothing new to Liverpool. Teams have been low blocking us for years. You know, no team, with the exception of perhaps Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, come to Anfield to go toe-to-toe with us. Because if you're not Manchester United, Manchester City, Arsenal, Chelsea, and you come and you try and go toe-to-toe with Liverpool, you will get absolutely smashed. You know, the Burnleys, the Leedses, the Liverpool, the Sunderlands, the Evertons, the Wolveses, West Hams of this world know that if they come to Anfield and they try and go toe-to-toe with us, they're going to get hammered. They know, though, if they sit in, they low block, and they try to hit us on the counter, they may get a draw, they may get a surprise victory. And it's happening more now that they're able to do that because of the style of football we're playing. And that's on the manager. That's on the tactics that he is employing. And it's become a bit of a vicious circle, really. Stenner says, yeah, Walkers, we did look good in parts of the Bournemouth game, but we have to battle as well. I agree. We did look good the first 15, 20 minutes, for example. We did use the ball very well, but we didn't take our chances. We didn't put the ball in the back of the net. We didn't put Bournemouth down. We gave them a chance to get back into the game through some shocking defending. And you're right on that one. He says, Gakpo has been sussed out by everyone. Good player, but Liverpool player, not sure. I agree. Gakpo has been sussed out. Now, I think Gakpo is suffering from two things. One, like you said, he's been sussed out. Everyone knows that if you want to stop Cody Gakpo from being effective, push him onto his left foot. Don't let him cut inside. he's not going to be effective. Second reason is, I think as well, if you look at it, last season he had Luis Diaz pushing him all the way. You had two players of equal standing pushing each other. Now there's a saying, iron sharpens iron. Two dogs, one bone. You put two dogs to fight over a bone, the strongest dog's going to win the bone. Okay, iron sharpens iron. The issue we've got this season, for me, is that that no one is pushing Cody Gakpo. Gakpo knows that, yes, Florian Wirtz is playing there at the moment, but realistically, he's going to play as a 10 long term. He knows that Rion Gamoa is not a threat to him. He knows that Fede Chiesa is not a threat to him. So he knows pretty much that there is little threat to his place in this squad. We haven't signed anybody. If we brought in Antoine Semenyo, it would have been a threat to Cody Gakpo. Maybe you would have then seen a raise in Cody's levels. But we're not seeing that. And that is a big worry with Cody. And Cody, look, I like Cody. I think Cody's a good footballer, but he isn't showing it this season. He really is not showing it this season. You know, he really is showing little or no quality this season. And it is a massive concern for me going forward. You know, it is a big concern over him. What's my opinion on Frimpong? I think Frimpong is very good going forward, Stenner. I think he's very good attack-wise. He's a wing-back. He's not a right-back. He's not a winger. He's a wing-back. I think he would work well in a three-at-the-back system. I think if we did employ Xavi Alonso and we brought in a three-at-the-back system, which we'd struggle with at the moment because we haven't got enough centre-backs, he would work really well as a right wing-back. But he's not a full-back because defensively he's not solid enough. Going forward, he's very good. He's not skillful enough to play as a winger, an out-and-out winger, but he certainly is. He's a decent player. He's a good player. But if you're going to play a four at the back, then Bradley's probably a better bet because he's more solid defensively and doesn't take too much away going forward. If you're going to play three at the back, Frimpong is a better bet because he's more of a wing back. You know, if you look at where he was effective, why he was effective in Leverkusen, it was because he was used as a wing back. He was part of that back. It was a back three. There was then a midfield four in a Xavi Alonso's thing. He will get better. Yeah, I think Stenner, he will get there, and I think he still has a young player developing. I like Frimpong. Don't get me wrong. I think he's going to be a very good signing, and I actually think in terms of our fullbacks, we've got better fullbacks to play as wing backs than we have as fullbacks. I mean, Kerkez, I think, would be a very good wing back. I think that Frimpong is a good wing back. I think even Robbo could play as a wing back, to be honest with you, in this team. So, yeah, he will just give us a spark. He does certainly bring something to the team. And I do like Frimpong. But, you know, getting back to this, I think Slot has a lot of the blame for what is going wrong this season is on Slot. He's tried to change tactics. It hasn't worked. And I think Jamie Carragher was right when he said that this Liverpool team is not set up to play in the Premier League. Tonight, Liverpool will beat Qarabag and will beat Qarabag quite easily. And then the slot-in crowd will be all like, oh, you can't sack the manager, he's amazing, he's fantastic. But this squad, to me, the team to me, is better set up to play in Europe. Because in Europe, you can play with less intensity. You can play slower. You can play possession-based football in Europe, in the Champions League. And you can get away with it. If you keep it solid at the back and you create chances, create the odd chance, take the odd chance, you can win games in the Champions League very easily. In the Premier League, it doesn't work because of the fact that in the Champions League, you get less teams that come to low block, less teams that come to stop you playing, and more teams that actually come to play against you. Whereas in the Premier League, you've got to play with a speed, with an intensity that just isn't there from this Liverpool squad at the moment. And I do feel that is why you're seeing not great results in the Premier League, but better results in the Champions League. Away at Marseille, great performance, 3-0 victory. Because we're playing away, that style works. The Inter Milan game, again, solid defensively, slow build-up, hit them on the counter, get a penalty, score a goal, win 1-0. It works. And I think the Slot style, it'll work in Europe because that sort of football does work in Europe. It doesn't work in the Premier League because you've got to have a speed, an intensity, an aggression to win in the Premier League. And against the low block, it's even more important. Stella says, I just feel Slot has his work cut out with all the transfers, Diaz, Trent, etc. and all the new signings. Takes so long to bed in 4 or 5 players. And I get that. But I don't think he is doing it in the right way, Stenner. I think he is not playing to these players' strengths. It's fine, mate. He's not playing to these players' strengths. He's not using them in the right way. And I think that this squad would be better set up to play with a speed, to play with an aggression, to play with an intensity there. And I think if they played more Klopp-esque football, you would actually see better results from them. You know, in terms of Viet, I think he would have flourished under Klopp. Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, I think Kirkes and Frimpong would have flourished under Klopp. And I think a more attacking style would be better for this squad and better in the Premier League. Certainly that would be the way I would look at it going forward. I'll be honest with you, I will stick by my opinion. I think that unless Liverpool win the Champions League this season, Arne Slot is gone at the end of the year. He will be gone in the summer and replaced by, I don't know who, Xabi Alonso, possibly, Nagelsmann, somebody else. But I do think that we are at real risk of missing out on Champions League football. You know, you've looked at the situation with the teams in and around us. Newcastle are coming back into form. Manchester United are on a good upward trend of form under their new manager, Michael Carrick. Liam Rosenior has got Chelsea moving in the right direction. I think there is a real worry with our Premier League form and our Premier League results and the way we play in the Premier League, with Man United away to come still, with Chelsea still to come, that we could finish sixth or seventh this season. I really do think we could finish sixth or seventh this season and miss out on Champions League football. If we miss out on Champions League football, it costs us £50 million, which therefore impacts the summer transfer business and restricts who we can bring in. Going to a Champions League club is more attractive than going to a Europa League club. But by the same token, that the only way then to get into the Champions League, if we finish sixth or seventh, is to win the Champions League. That is the only way Slot saves his job for me, is winning the Champions League. Do I think we can win the Champions League? No, I don't. I think Manchester City are stronger than us, PSG are stronger than us, Bayern Munich are stronger than us, Arsenal are stronger than us. You know, there's the teams I would put as Real Madrid, I think, probably long term. Barcelona, I think these teams are all better set up to actually win the Champions League in the long run than Liverpool are. So, you know, they're the two ways to get the Champions League. I think we could miss out on both. If Slot doesn't win the Champions League, as I've said, I think he will be gone in the summer. You know, if we win the Champions League, you can't sack him because you can't sack a Champions League winning manager. There's a number of reasons why I feel that he will be sacked. Okay, say that's true. Is Alonso the right man? I mean, that's a great question, and we'll talk about that certainly. You know, at the time when it comes up, Alonso is a good manager, but is then a better manager Nagelsmann? Is it Enrique? Who is the better bet? Stenner? I don't know. You know, I'd have to spend more time looking into these candidates to tell you who is the better bet. And should Slot go now or at the end of the season? Personally, I would sack Slot today, and I'd bring in Gerrard until the end of the season, because at least Gerrard would put some fire back in them. At least he wouldn't let them fuck about and put in half-assed performances. But under no circumstances would I give Steven Gerrard the job long term. I'd say until the end of the season, and then you look at the end of the season who you bring in. I do think that Gerrard would move this team forward. He'd have them playing with more aggression, more intensity, more dynamism, and I think he'd get better results in the Premier League than Slot does. So I do think he should go now. He won't. He'll go at the end of the season. Now, I think the evidence that he goes at the end of the season is kind of building up. There appears to be a narrative within the Liverpool journos, within the James Pearces, Lewis Steeles of this world, the Jacobs of this world, saying that there is a dissatisfaction within the hierarchy at Liverpool with Arne Slot. And they're not happy with how this season's gone, especially given the money they spent in the summer. Secondly, he's only got 18 months left on his contract. At the end of this season, he has 12 months left on his contract. All talks over Arne getting a new contract have stopped. So why have they stopped? So why at the start of the season, where there's so many talks about this extension, this mythical extension being put to him, now that's been suspended? If you are very teams that go into a season where a manager has 12 months left on his contract with no prospect at that point of a renewal, tend to not do very well in that season, because players tend to stop playing, tend to stop listening to that manager, because they look at him and go, he's got 12 months left. He's probably not going to be here next season. Why would I bother? Why am I going to try? I'll try for the new man. So I think there's that element in there as well. The third element, I think, as well, is we have not spent any money in January. Now, I don't know for why. I don't know if this is true or not true, but not backing Slot in this window, to me, is saying we don't have any faith in you. We're not going to bring players in. We're going to wait till the summer. You're going to be gone. We're going to have a new manager. Then we'll bring players in. The evidence is, to me, is building up and building up and building up that he will be gone at the end of the season. That seems to be the evidence and the way things are pointing. And I think, like I said, the overwhelming thing is there is an unhappiness within the hierarchy at Liverpool Football Club with how this season has progressed. Like I said to you, is it all on Slot? I think 75-80% of this is on Slot. I think there is an element of blame to put on Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards if it's true that they're not spending money, they're not backing the manager, and they're not strengthening the squad. I don't think we did strengthen the squad enough. I don't think we thickened out the squad enough in the summer. We should have got another centre-back, a 6, another winger. We should have replaced Diaz. We should have brought in another centre-back, given the uncertainty over Canate, the fitness record of Joe Gomez. And we certainly should have brought in another a player to replace Diaz, a player obviously as well as a 6. There's options there we should have thickened out a little bit in terms of strengthening this squad. But I don't know for a fact that whether that was down to Arne saying, no, I don't want these players, or Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes saying there's no money for them. We don't know. I think the fact Slot's family have stayed in Holland says so much. As a result, I feel Slot is struggling being away from his family. I mean, that could be a point as well, mate. Yeah. Again, that's another piece of evidence that he's not going to stay long term. In terms of tonight, I do think that Liverpool will win the game tonight. I think they'll win the game quite easily tonight against Qarabag. Qarabag are an attacking direct team. They'll come and they'll play an attacking direct style, which I think will obviously play into Liverpool's hands. They've had some decent results in the Champions League, don't get me wrong. They've done okay. They've done not too bad in the Champions League. They beat Eintracht Frankfurt 3-2. Yes, Eintracht Frankfurt are shite. I'll give you that one. So there's that. If you go back a little bit in terms of that, they lost 4-2 to Ajax at home. They lost 2-0 to Napoli. They did draw 2-2 at home to Chelsea. So, no mugs there. Their record isn't terrible in the Champions League, in terms of that. So they beat Copenhagen 2-0. Their record's not bad at all. But it's a game we should be winning, a game we should be easily able to put them to bed, because it's Qarabag, for God's sake. It's not exactly a difficult team to play, and we should have more than enough strength to actually beat them. My team for tonight, I've tried to kind of think, what will the manager do? What will Arne Slot do tonight in terms of his team selections? I think he'll go with Alisson in goal, a back four of Frimpong, Endo, Virgil van Dijk and Kerkez. I've got to admit, playing Endo at centre-back does worry me. It worries me slightly less against Qarabag than it does against Newcastle Newcastle at the weekend. Endo, to me, is not good enough to be a starter, but there are little to no other options. As I said on the video this morning, you put Gravenberch into centre-back, you weaken the midfield because there is no other 6. You put Robbo into centre-back. Well, Robbo is a left-sided centre-back, which means you move Virgil to right side, which puts Virgil out of his comfort zone. And also, Andy is not, I don't think, tall enough or big enough to be a centre-back. And he did struggle against PSV playing there last season. Midfield 3, I think he goes in McAllister and Gravenberch protecting the back 4, as they did in Marseille away. I don't think Jones will start tonight. I think Maka and Gravenberch, who were very, very good against Marseille, will do their job of shielding that back 4 and trying to start attacks off. Sobbo will play in the 10. Salah will be wide right. Wirtz left. And he will start Ekitike through the middle. That is how I think he will line up tonight. I might be wrong. He might bring Curtis Jones in. He might not play Wirtz. He might play Gakpo, because he does seem to love Cody Gakpo, doesn't he? So I think there will be that is probably his strongest 11 at this point in time, and he's going to see this as a must-win game. I do think that playing Endo is a worry, not tonight, in the long term, and I think it does show that we are really desperate for centre backs. I also think that in terms of that attacking 3, we need to see more quicker movement of the ball, more shooting, more taking of chances. Mo Salah, to me, looks to be lacking in confidence. I mean, there was a few times on Saturday where he got the ball and he was in space. And in the past, he would have cut in on his left foot, hit a shot. But he stopped, he slowed down, he looked for a pass. He didn't take his chances. So I think we need to see a more decisive Mo Salah tonight in terms of the way he plays tonight. In terms of predictions, I'm going to go for 3-1 Liverpool tonight. I think it'll be a win, an easier win. for the team. Right, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you to Stenna for all his comments, or her comments. I'm not quite sure, Stenna, if you're male or female. Can't tell from the name. Thank you for watching the Liverpool FC Journal live. If you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Please keep checking out the channel. We bring out daily videos. We bring out podcasts. We're going to bring out more live streams as we go along, as the subscriber numbers grow. We're always going to be a free channel, guys. We're not going to charge you for content. We're not going to hide content behind paywalls. We're not going to do any of that, bring in pay tiers. That's not the way we work. Thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. I will catch you next time.
Thank you.